Hi, I'm Amy and welcome back, and today we're going to be talking about what I watched in the month of April. Quick, little disclaimer at the top here. I am in between, I'm in a lull between panic attacks. For some weird reason, I have been having them for the past 3 days out of nowhere. So we're gonna, kind of try to work through this. And while I'm talking, I'm going to plug my phone in because it's dying. But let's kind of start off the top before I really jive in. I don't know what I'm talking about. Before I jump into what I'm going to be all of the Letterboxd movies I'm going to be talking about today, any ADHD. Any movies that I talk about that are Academy Award nominated or winners, because, that's a thing that happened, and if I didn't do a video on it, I usually do a video on it, and when I do... No, wait, what am I trying to say? Sorry that this is getting up to such a bumpy start, I had it written down and I was doing something else. So any Academy Award nominated film that I talk about, I will probably recommend it unless otherwise stated, because there is at least one in here that I did not like and I do not recommend watching. But I think all of the international films are on Hulu, and a bunch of at least Nomadland, Best Picture winner Nomadland, is on Hulu as well. I highly recommend watching all of the Best Picture, oh, my air conditioner is going off. I highly recommend watching all of the international features. I will talk about them in this because I did watch most of them except for Another Round, which won international feature. And that is the one, if you watch none of them, that is the one I recommend watching, because it won for a reason. And yeah, but I think what I started my tangent on was I did not do a video talking about my Oscar picks for this year, but I did do kind of a post on my Patreon. It's available to all patrons, I believe. Yeah, it should be available to all patrons. So if you want to check that out, it's posted on my Patreon. So let's get into this. So for April, I did not start watching any movies until the 4th. And on that day, I watched it was one of the films for 1001 for March, which I had only watched in March, the 1001 film that I did a video on. And then, so that was Amadeus. And then after Amadeus, it's an amazing film, and I wanted to do something kind of stupid and dumb after that. So I watched 13 Ghosts, both the William Castle version and the 2001 remake with Matthew Lillard and Monk himself, Tony Shalhoub. But I definitely enjoyed the William Castle version a lot more. If you have been following me for a long time, since the beginning, I did an entire video on my absolute favorite horror film of all time, William Castle's Tingler. It's one of my favorite, it is my favorite horror film of all time. It's my favorite William Castle film. I really wish that I could go see a William Castle film in the theater the way it is intended, with all of the, I think they call it Spectrovision. He created Spectrovision for 13 Ghosts, and I can't remember, I should know what it's called for the Tingler, but it's you sit in the seat, and when the Tingler comes on screen, the seats, certain seats in the theater vibrate, and it's so cool. And I really wish I could have been around in the 60s, the 50s, 60s, when he was doing those kinds of things, to actually experience that. It's such a fun theater experience, which is really funny considering I hate 4D cinema and the Bugs Life experience in Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom. Well, I can't talk today. What is up with me? The Bugs Land 4D experience in the tree at Animal Kingdom scared me shitless when I was a kid. Like, I remember I was like 10 to 13 years old, climbing onto my grandmother's lap at 10 or 13 years old when there were bugs crawling in the seats. So I don't know how I would have handled, like, you know, a chair vibrating for watching The Tingler, but 13 Ghosts, it's really just like fake 3D glasses that you put on that are reminiscent of the glasses that you see in the movie. Then after that, I watched a couple other movies. I watched Guys and Dolls, which was another 1001 movie that I was supposed to watch back in March. And I watched the 1998 Godzilla for the podcast, which is an episode. We talk about a lot of Godzilla. We talk about, I think that's the Justice League episode as well. No, that's not the Justice League episode. Anyways, the Godzilla episode, it's actually, we talk about Godzilla versus Kong in that episode. It's an episode. And then the next day I watched Orphans of the Storm, which I barely paid attention to it. It was not like, I rated it highly. I rated it 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's a well-made film, but it's also did not capture my attention as much as it probably could have. As always, I didn't mention this at the top, you can check out my Letterboxd. I write reviews of like 90% of the movies that I watch. So if you want more of my thoughts on them, I would check out my Letterboxd. The next day I watched Pacific Rim after we had talked about Pacific Rim along with a bunch of other monster movies during the Godzilla episode. It was more of a Godzilla vs. Kong and the like 1998 Godzilla focus, but we did mention Pacific Rim, and I wanted to give it a rewatch just to kind of see why I didn't like it the first time I watched it, and I did kind of enjoy it a little bit more. The next day I watched Speed Racer, which the only reason I watched this was because there was a CinemaSins video on it and the podcast from the Try Guys called Guilty Pleasures, which is very similar to my podcast, which my podcast has been around for almost 3 years now. We're going to be hitting 3 years in October. It's very similar to what my podcast does. We say, does it hold up? They say, is it guilty pleasure? Is it like guilty, like as in it's a bad movie kind of thing? So I checked that out because they talked about that movie, and it's really fun. It's from the Wachowski siblings, and it's insane. I highly recommend giving it a watch if you can. Then I watched the original Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation after that because I was getting ready for the actual Mortal Kombat, which I'll talk about later on in here. I will also be doing a review of it next week, but I enjoyed the first Mortal Kombat. The Mortal Kombat Annihilation was not the best, but I do have reviews of those. After that I did a couple Oscar-nominated films. Quo Viadas by, I can't pronounce foreign languages. I took Spanish for 13 years and I still cannot pronounce anything. This is not Spanish though. This is, where's this from? I like having the browser version of it because you can get a lot more information, and I am a sucker for statistics. But it's set in Bosnia, so anyways, I think it roughly translates. I did a couple steps to translate it, and I believe it translates to Where Are You Going, Idea. It's beautiful. It is a wonderful film. It is heartbreaking, but it is a very well done film. I absolutely enjoyed it. It's Oscar nominated, so you know what that means. I recommend it. Wolfwalkers is the Apple TV Plus animated film that was nominated. I enjoyed it. I recommend watching it if you're into animated films, but other than that, it's not the one that I say don't watch, but it's still pretty good. I enjoyed myself. It's a nice family film. I did this month, for the 1001 review that I'm doing in May, I did Woody Allen just because I wanted to get all the Woody Allen off the plate. If you want to hear my extreme feelings about Woody Allen, you can check out the reviews on here, I talk about how much I dislike Woody Allen in all of my reviews of the Woody Allen films that I watched, as well as I go on a 10-minute tirade about how I feel about him in the review that went up on Sunday on my Patreon. But I watched Manhattan. I'm not going to get into how I feel about it in here. I'm not going to get into how I feel about any of the Woody Allen films except for the one that I really liked. The rest of that day, I did a bunch of... Actually, I did 3... Yes. 3 Oscar picks. 2 of them were short films. 2 Distant Strangers, which I really, really loved. It's really good. And it won Best Short Film. It's not the one I thought would win, but it's still a great one. And The Present, which is another short film. They are both on Netflix. They are the short live action. They're really good. And then I watched The Midnight Sky, which is the George Clooney film. That I believe is also on Netflix. I did not enjoy it. It's not one that I say don't watch because the visuals on it are beautiful, and it was nominated for Best Visual Effects. It did not win because, Tenet was a thing in there. But I enjoyed the how beautiful it is. I did not enjoy the story. I do not recommend it for the story. I recommend watching it for its beauty. After that, I wanted to watch, I found it on HBO Max, and it's my favorite Mary-Kate and Ashley movie of all time, only because emo. I'm not a former emo kid. I am an emo kid. It stars for 5 minutes Simple Plan, who Simple Plan is, this is my Simple Plan tattoo. It has been my favorite band since I was 10. Yeah, I'm going to be 31 in 4 days. I have loved I'm getting emotional thinking about it. I love Simple Plan so much. They were one of the last concerts that I got to see in person, along with the Jonas, not the same concert, but it was Simple Plan, the Jonas Brothers, and All Time Low. 3 of my favorite bands / musical groups since I was a little kid. Since I was 10, I loved Simple Plan. And then I love the Jonas Brothers since, Mandy came out and was playing on Radio Disney. And All Time Low, another band tattoo, has been my favorite band for, since, senior year of high school. But that long tangent to say I watched New York Minute on HBO Max. It's one of my favorite, I love Mary-Kate and Ashley movies, but it's one of my favorite Mary-Kate and Ashley movies. It also stars Eugene Levy, which is great. Eugene Levy is always good in anything. It doesn't matter what. I still need to finish Schitt's Creek. That day, I also watched Dick Tracy for the podcast. That is an episode you should check out. That's probably one of my favorite episodes. We end very confused. It's a good time. And then the next day, I just wanted to kind of decompress. This is kind of around the time, for some reason, it's been happening for the past couple weeks when they started happening slowly, but my panic attacks would come in for no good reason. That's what happens when you have anxiety. But I wanted to kind of decompress with something that really I did not care that much about. So I watched San Andreas with The Rock because for some reason I find The Rock fighting the elements always kind of calms me down. It kind of centers me. So, I love watching The Rock versus giant creatures or a giant building or, cars. So, San Andreas. And then I kind of wanted something fun. The next day I watched the Simpsons movie because I had not ever seen it. I had never seen the thing in its entirety. I've seen bits and pieces of it, mostly the stuff with the cabin and some of the stuff in the dome, but I was you know what? I kind of want something dumb and fun to watch. So I was I have not seen the entire Simpsons movie. It's on Disney Plus, so I went and watched it. Next, I watched News of the World, which is the Tom Hanks film that was nominated for cinematography. It was nominated for cinematography, and the cinematography in it is beautiful. It's very amazing landscape cinematography, which is similar to what Nomadland had but it's different in a way. Nomadland's cinematography is a very like realistic cinematography, and the News of the World cinematography is more just like, it's like more of like a beautiful photograph kind of thing. After that, I watched The Life Ahead, which is also on Netflix. It was nominated for the song. I did not really notice the song. I think it was like a credit song, but I enjoyed the movie for the most part. I think the only comment I made on Letterboxd was Sophia Loren is magnificent, which, full stop, she is. That's like the reason that you should watch this. Also, it's got a beautiful relationship, like, of this little boy and the older woman played by Sophia Loren, and their relationship is really beautiful, but it does feel kind of imbalanced. And the next 2 days are when I did my final Oscar binge, which the majority of that was shorts, and the last best feature that I need to watch, and all of the international features, and I think a couple other things. Yeah, there was a couple things that I watched in here, but The Father was the first thing that I watched. Oh my God, as someone who is going through, I don't get to experience it firsthand, but whenever I do see like my grandmother on FaceTime, she's going through Alzheimer's, and it's extremely heartbreaking to see that, and to have to like have my dad and my aunt and uncles, or my aunts and uncle, experience that. But oh God, The Father is amazing, and I'm Anthony Hopkins won for Best Acting, and he totally deserves it, because he is outstanding. If it wasn't for Anthony Hopkins, this film would not have been nominated for Best Picture. I don't think. Like, Anthony Hopkins is amazing, and I can understand why he won. It's just, it's sad that Chadwick Boseman didn't win. After that, I really brought everything down from watching, like, how high I was watching The Father, and it's like everything about it is like amazing. The production design of it is incredible. I watched Pinocchio. This is the Oscar-nominated film that I do not recommend. I did not like it. It was nominated for hair and makeup and costuming, I believe. You can see I did a thing. I wrote a whole article on it, but I understand, like, they explained during the Oscar ceremony, because that's how they introduce the nominees, is like explaining different, like, they did different things, but they kind of explained why he was the only character that wore red, and honestly, I could have cared less. Like, the costuming and the makeup were really fantastic, but they did not hold a candle to the costuming and makeup on a lot of the other features that were nominated. Plus, like, Ma Rainey's costuming and makeup and hair were they were off the charts incredible. I absolutely loved the styling of that film, because it felt, I talk about it in what I watched that month that I watched it, which I think was like in February. But I loved Ma Rainey. Pinocchio, on the other hand, the story was just, you don't have to bother watching it. I watched it for you to tell you it's not good. And then the last movie I watched that day was Better Days. It is I think it's a Chinese film. It's either Chinese or Hong Kong. But it is a story about bullying and a beautiful relationship. It's not like a romantic film, but there are romantic elements to it. They don't outright kind of shove it in your face, the romantic elements of it, but it's incredibly sweet, and I still think about it to this day, and I watched it 2 weeks ago now. It's beautiful. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend a lot of these Oscar-nominated films. And then I think this was when I was kind of closing it out. I think there's still one more day after this next day that I still had the rest of the Oscar shorts to go. But I watched The Man Who Sold His Skin, which was nominated for International Feature. It's pretty good. It's a movie. I watched The United States versus Billie Holiday, which Andra Day is incredible. This was nominated for Best Actress. That's all it was nominated for. And the story is the story. I did not watch it for that. I watched it for Andra Day because that is what it was nominated for. But I recommend watching it just to be able to kind of know the history of Billie Holiday, and kind of what the United States was doing and how that kind of enforced racism that is correlated with drug abuse, things like that. It's very moving in that aspect, and Andra Day does a brilliant job of conveying that. But it is a very choppy story. You're like kind of watching it, like watching different stories and segments. Then in The Letter Room, which is Oscar Isaac in a nominated short film, and it's a movie. It's a short film. It's pretty good. I mean, I just watched it for Oscar Isaac's mustache, if I'm going to be completely honest. But, you know, I would check it out if I were you, if you got some time. I don't know where you can watch it. It may be on... you can rent it on YouTube if you really, really want to. Then the last thing I watched that day was a rewatch of Peter Pan for probably the billionth time. I watched Peter Pan for... Like, I watched Peter Pan so much. But I was watching it to research something for a little something that I'm working on. It's a secret. It's not like one of those YouTuber secrets. It's a screenplay that I've been working on forever, and I finally got a masterclass subscription through work because I wanted to learn screenwriting from Aaron Sorkin, so that's what I'm doing. You know, I'm doing a play, like, I'm writing a screenplay based off of Peter Pan. That's all I'm doing. And I'm not really doing it to write it to make it. I'm doing it more as a practice so I can do it. But also, at the same time, my ADHD prevents me from actually focusing on it for too long. I get bored probably 35 to 50 minutes into doing it. So, you know, that's always fun. And this is the day that I watched a ton of shorts. I think this is like all of the rest of the Oscar nominated films I had to watch, and they're all these shorts. So, Hunger Ward, I'm going to speed through these. Hunger Ward, Do Not Split is incredible. This is the Hong Kong film that I was thinking of. But Do Not Split, it's about the protests in Hong Kong that started in 2019 and went on through last year. Colette is incredible. I cried. A Concerto as a Conversation is also a really beautiful and moving piece. Feeling Through is also incredible, and it made my cold little heart melt. White Eye is fantastic. Like, this, I want them to, like, I don't think they could make it into a feature, but the cinematography is just out of this world. I love it. And I think the only reason that it didn't win was because Two Distant Strangers is a great political commentary currently in America, and it's also in English. Kind of, that's the way a lot of the Academy members work. The only foreign language film that they ever watch is the international feature. So, and then Genius Loci, I think that's how they pronounced it during the ceremony. It was a short film. It's definitely something that, like, I was reading a lot of the reviews on the IMDb, the Letterboxd page, and people weren't really understanding the message, and I kind of interpret it, like, which a lot of films are open to interpretation, and this is a very, what did I call it? Like, what did I say? It's surrealism isn't for everyone, and it's up to the viewer's interpretation. I interpret it personally as someone processing and, like, working through and learning and understanding their dissociative identity disorder. I watched Opera next, which is it's incredibly strange and fascinating. I rewound, because there's so much going on within the film that I rewound it and watched certain areas a couple different times. And the last one I watched was Yes People, which there's like not any language or anything, like as in nobody talks. It's mostly just like little mouse noises, kind of like a Peanuts character, but not like the wah 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 wah, like the Peanuts adults. But it's a sweet little short film. And then I did two more Woody Allen movies, Hannah and Her Sisters and The Purple Rose of Cairo. This one, The Purple Rose of Cairo, was the one Woody Allen film that I watched that I absolutely enjoyed, and I think that was because Woody Allen was not actually in the movie. I think that's my issue with him. Maybe, not really. Like, I have other issues with Woody Allen, but that might be one of them. And the next day was the finale of Falcon and Winter Soldier. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as WandaVision, but it's great. And spoilers if you have not watched it, it's everywhere, pretty much. We all know what was coming. I'm very, very happy that Anthony Mackie is the new Captain America. It's exciting and it's fun. Then Mortal Kombat happened. I also watched that the next day. It's a trip. It's fun. You'll see my full review of that in a week. And then I did a couple more new movies, which is Stowaway. It's a Netflix film directed by Joe Penna. If you watched like OG YouTube Mystery Guitar Man, he also did a movie with Mads Mikkelsen. You know, watch Another Round with Mads Mikkelsen in it. I love that movie. And this one was, I have not watched the movie Arctic that he did with Mads Mikkelsen, but Stowaway was just, it was kind of okay. It was okay. And to round that out, I watched just a movie. It was a movie. You could call it a movie. Thunder Force, with Octavia Spencer and Melissa McCarthy, and it disappointed me. I'll just say that. Disappointed me. The next day, I watched the Wework Documentary on Hulu for the Patreon bonus features that went up on last Friday, and it's an intense ride. I spent the majority of my review on that talking about why I hate the concept of Wework so much. I just do not like the concept of Wework. It gives me anxiety. Maybe that's why my anxiety attacks have started happening, because I just thought about WeWork for so long. And then I finished up. There's only a couple more things left. Camera, you're gotta hold on. You've already overheated once. But I wrapped up my Woody Allen month. I actually got all of the movies that I was supposed to watch for 1001 in the month. I watched Crimes and Misdemeanors. Oh God, I went on a little bit of a tirade in the review on this, as well as on the review, the 1001 review. The 1001 review is not about the movie that I actually watched, really. It's mostly about my feelings about Woody Allen. So if you really want my feelings about Woody Allen, again, I highly recommend watching that. But Crimes and Misdemeanors, and then Sleeper, which was the film that was picked, that I enjoyed a little bit more. I think that's my second favorite of his films that I've watched, because it was just kind of fun and lighthearted. It had a Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin feel to it that I really enjoyed and I was surprised by. And then to round out April, the 28th, that was the day that my panic attacks just kind of took hold of me, and all I could do really was watch Harry Potter. So I watched the first 3 Harry Potter movies, and I started the 4th one but fell asleep during the maze of the Triwizard Tournament. So I didn't really fully watch, all of it. So that is everything movie-wise that I watched. So let's talk about some of the TV, which is not a big list because all I watched in April was the Goldbergs. Whenever I had free time, I watched the Goldbergs, and I'm pretty sure I started it in April. And as of last night, recording this, I am almost to where they are currently airing episodes. So I kind of just like put it on in the background while I was doing stuff, but I was like still paying attention to it. Or I would just like lay in bed for like 8 hours and watch it. And then the only other TV that I watched this month besides Falcon and Winter Soldier is, of course, X-Men the Animated Series for the podcast that I do on Patreon called Pilot Season. It is almost over. If you want to be a part of Pilot Season, I mean, you can always be a part of Pilot Season. They live on there forever for you to listen to. Or, like, the new season will be coming up in July. You can give me suggestions on what you want me to watch if you want to kind of enjoy that. It's probably one of my favorite things to do every week is to watch the 2 episodes of X-Men the Animated Series and do a short, usually roughly they've been around 8 to 10 minute episodes where I kind of talk about my feelings and my thoughts on certain episodes. And if I do, depending on what TV shows get suggested, I may get an hour-long show and I'll be doing 1 episode and maybe a little bit longer episodes. Who knows? Who knows what's coming up, because I think today the suggestion post is opened up if you want to leave me some suggestions on Patreon for what shows you would like me to talk about, and then, you know, listen to the podcast and interact with me on there, because it's a fun time. It's probably, again, my favorite thing to do every week is those Patreon podcast episodes. And then to wrap this all up, it's usually what I watched, but last week I started talking about the podcasts that I listen to. I have a playlist on Spotify of all of the podcasts that I listen to. If you ever want to, you know, check that out, it's interesting. I have a weird taste in podcasts. So, yeah, that link will always be in the description if you, you know, want to take a listen to my weird podcast taste. But that is everything that I watched this month. Let me know in the comments down below some of your favorite things that you watched this month. I hope this wasn't extremely random and weird, because I feel like I am going crazy right now. So I'm gonna wrap this up before I get too, I don't know what the word I was looking for. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really truly do appreciate you, whoever you are. Let me know who you are in the comments down below, and let's be friends. If you enjoyed this, leave a like and subscribe if you're new, because I love talking things, movies, TV shows, filmmaking, film history, all that fun stuff. And I'll see you next time. Bye.